and will be available online for folk who aren't able to attend today's briefing or for your own reference at a future point in time. Again, we've also prepared a post-nomination pack, and that will be emailed to all attendees after tonight's session. And that's got a set of the slides in that post-nomination pack. If you prefer a hard copy pack, if you can please let the elections office team know and they'll get this organised. So again, I think we've got on the slide welcome and introductions. So my name's Paul Manning. I'm the returning officer. So you're most welcome to this session. And this is for South Lanarkshire Council, Ward 5, Avondale and Stonehouse by-election. So thanks for attending. Hopefully you'll find this useful. I'd also like to introduce the other folk who I've got in the room with me. We've got Ian Strachan, who's one of my deputy returning officers. We also have Laura Jardine, who's our elections officer. So the aims for the session are summarised on your agenda: to provide information to candidates and agents following the close of nominations yesterday, Monday, to provide detailed information on the postal vote arrangements and the count, and to provide an opportunity to ask questions. So feel free to ask questions at any point as we go through the agenda. If you just pop your hand up on Teams and I'll try and bring you in, and there'll be an opportunity for questions at the end again if you wish. So the next couple of slides that we've got are about the post-nomination pack and information. So following the close of nominations yesterday, we've published and made available in public-facing council offices in the ward area and on the council's website the following statutory documents. So these documents are also included in your post-nomination pack. So firstly, the statement of persons nominated, notice of poll and the situation of polling stations. There are 9 candidates in the Avondale and Stonehouse by-election. The ballot paper, which is white in colour, has the candidates listed in the same order as the notices, that is, the alphabetical order by surname, and a box opposite each candidate to allow electors to cast their vote. The situation of polling stations details the venues which are being used for this ward by-election. It contains the ranges of electoral registration numbers for voters who are entitled to vote at each polling place. On the notice of election agents, that document is self-explanatory. That is, it's got details relating to each of the election agents for the candidates standing. We've also updated the electorate figures for you, and that's broken down in person electorate and postal vote electorate. I don't know if we've got figures. In fact, the figures are there on the slide. I can't see them because my glasses don't work that way. So in terms of the Avondale and Stonehouse, the total electorate is 16,001. The in-person electorate is 13,328, and the postal vote electorate is 2,673. So the third main thing we were going to talk about under on our slides is on the notification of appointment of counting and polling agents and the appointment of postal voting agents. So that is what this next slide is about. So that form that's in the pack, that allows candidates to appoint as many polling agents as considered necessary to attend the polling places. However, the number of counting agents is based on the maximum attendees to ensure the safe conduct of the count. So what I'm really saying is that's based around how many people we can safely allow into the count venue. For this by-election, we can provide 1 counting agent for each candidate, along with a candidate pass, election agent pass, and a candidate's guest pass. Therefore, each candidate will have 4 passes for the count. So the statutory deadline for returning that form is Thursday, the 10th of September. However, it's helpful if you can return the document as early as possible to allow passes to be put into production at the close of the date on the 10th of September. So on receipt of your completed document, you'll be advised of the arrangements for picking up your passes in advance of attending the count. On postal voting agents, if you're appointing postal voting agents to attend the postal vote opening sessions, the deadline for this form is different. You must return the postal votes agents form in advance of the relevant session you or your agent wishes to attend. And the opening sessions are detailed in your pack, and I'll talk through that later on. So the fourth thing that we want to talk about on the next slide is about absent voting arrangements. So this firstly covers postal votes. So on the issue of postal votes, as the date for the issue of postal votes draws closer, I would remind you of the two key principles when dealing with postal votes. And this is in the Electoral Commission's Code of Conduct for candidates and agents. Candidates and agents should uphold the secrecy of the ballot, and candidates and agents should not place themselves in a situation where their honesty or integrity can be questioned. Now, the deadline for postal vote applications or for changes to existing arrangements is 5 p.m. on Wednesday, the 2nd of September. Now, you can download application forms from the Electoral Registration Office website or from www.gov.uk/register to vote. Postal voting packs will be dispatched on Friday, the 4th of September, with a second manual dispatch taking place on Monday, the 7th of September, if required. Postal votes will be delivered first class, so the postal vote should reach the voter the next day. However, we have advised voters to contact the election office if their postal voting pack has not arrived by midday on Friday, the 11th of September. Postal voting packs include a ballot paper and a postal voting statement. Voters must provide their date of birth and signature unless that requirement's waived on the postal voting statement for their vote to be counted. If someone is unable to sign, they should apply for a waiver prior to the deadline of 5 p.m. on Wednesday, the 2nd of September. If a postal voter loses or spoils their postal voting pack, a replacement can be issued by contacting the election office up until 10 p.m. on polling day. On proxy votes, if someone is too late to apply for a postal vote, or they'll be away when the postal vote is due to be delivered, they may wish to consider appointing a proxy to vote on their behalf. Now, the deadline for applying to appoint a proxy is 5 p.m. on Wednesday, the 9th of September. Emergency proxies. So the deadline to apply for an emergency proxy is 5 p.m. on polling day, and that's Thursday, the 17th of September. There are certain circumstances which have to apply, such as medical emergencies or for work reasons. Now, the next slide is about the notice of opening of postal votes. So the statutory notice of opening of postal votes is enclosed in the pack. That notice advises on the venue and dates for the opening of postal voting sessions. As I mentioned earlier, candidates must ensure that they've completed and returned their appointment of postal voting agents form prior to the opening session their agent wishes to attend. In an effort to raise awareness of what actually happens at the opening of postal votes, I've prepared an outline procedure, and that's also within your pack, but it's worth taking a moment to go through that procedure. So, in terms of the opening procedure, right, to assist with the workflow, the procedure for the first week is simply to open the outer envelope, remove the postal voting statement in preparation for scanning, and the full opening session commences on Wednesday, the 16th of September. Therefore, only stage 1 will be carried out during the opening sessions commencing on Friday, the 11th of September. So at stage 1A, the outer envelope is opened, the postal voting statements are removed, ready for verification and batching. Envelope A, that envelope contains the ballot paper. So stage 1B, postal vote team leaders will scan the postal voting statements, adjudicate on the postal voting statements, and instruct the opening of envelope A. So stage 2A, and that involves the postal vote assistants and the postal vote manager. On the instruction of the postal vote manager, the assistants will commence stage 2A, and that's opening envelope A, removing the ballot paper, and all ballot papers will be kept face down so that they cannot be seen. Stage 2B involves postal vote team leaders scanning the back of the ballot paper and reconciling the paperwork processed for each particular day. That includes returning officer adjudication. Stage 2C, again, involves postal vote team leaders who will place accepted ballot papers in the allocated ballot box and seal the ballot box. Now, while it's possible to observe this process, you will not be able to see the ballot paper when the ballot paper envelope is opened, nor when the ballot paper is scanned. And I need to remind you that ballot paper sampling is not permitted during those opening sessions. So moving on from postal votes to poll cards, I mentioned at the pre-nomination session, the first run of poll cards were posted yesterday, and that was Monday, the 17th of August. The subsequent poll cards will be sent out on Friday, the 4th of September, and that's after the registration deadline, which is on Tuesday, the 1st of September. So moving on from poll cards to the arrangements in force at the poll. And this document has been prepared to outline some of the local arrangements at polling places, and there are a couple of points that I would like to highlight from that. So firstly, on display of advertisements and publicity materials, the council does not permit fly posting and street furniture or the display of A-frames outside polling places. If any of your supporters disregard this, you'll be contacted immediately to arrange for removal, failing which they would be removed by council staff. The second point I'd like to cover is about campaigning and leafleting. That isn't permitted within the curtilage of the polling place. Now, for most places, the curtilage means the perimeter fence around the polling place. But in polling places where the entrance or exit for the building is straight onto the pavement, what that means in terms of the curtilage is the building itself. That's viewed as being the curtilage. The presiding officer at station number 1 at each polling place has a layout plan of the curtilage of the building and has been asked to ensure that candidates and agents are clear on this. Candidates and agents can, where reasonable, be located at the entrance to polling places, or actually even inside in inclement weather. But care must be taken to ensure that voters do not feel intimidated, the area does not become congested, and that there is strictly no leafleting in that area. Presiding officers have been asked to ensure that this remains the case throughout the day and will liaise with the election office should any issues arise. As returning officer, I will have the final discretion on any issues which do arise. Rosettes with a candidate or party details are permitted to be worn. However, if someone is in the polling station for a prolonged period of time, they should remove their rosette. In terms of photography, there will be no photographs taken inside the polling place. So the next slide talks about what to expect on polling day. So it's an early start for the elections office, and that will be open from 6 AM with the logistics team and polling place partners on duty to ensure that arrangements run to plan. Any issues that arise should be directed to the election office, and the election office can be contacted. Election office staff can be contacted on 01698 455745. In terms of polling staff, the arrangements are as follows. The polling staff will arrive at 6:30 AM at the polling place to set up in good time for the opening of poll at 7 AM. There will be one presiding officer and one polling clerk on duty at each polling station. In polling places with 3 or more stations, there will be poll information officers who will be on hand to assist with queuing and guide voters to the correct station. A polling station inspector will visit the polling place at the start of the poll to support poll staff and the election office team, and will be on hand to assist throughout the day with arrangements. Standby polling staff have been recruited to work at short notice if required. Now, there's a point there at the foot of that slide about the voter turnout notice. To assist candidates and agents, the presiding officer at station number 1 will display a notice detailing voter turnout, and will try to update this approximately every 2 hours. The notice will be displayed near the entrance to the polling place. Obviously, agents can ask for turnout information at any time. However, our priority is to deal with people who are trying to vote, and if the presiding officer is busy with voters, the voters will obviously take priority. But we'll try to make sure that that turnout notice gets updated every 2 hours. So, moving on, have we jumped over a slide there? Right. Okay, right, listen, there's a slide. We'll address this before we get the pack out to you. But in terms of count arrangements, what you'll be aware of is that the count will take place here at the Council HQ in Hamilton in Committee Room 1. The count will commence at 10 PM on the 17th of September. It's an e-count, right? And it will commence as usual with the verification of unused and tendered ballot papers before moving on to verification and the counting of the postal and station ballot papers. Only people issued with a pass can gain access to the count. And I need to emphasise again, passes must be picked up from the elections office prior to attending the count, due to the fact that we've tried to tighten our security arrangements. So you need to pick up the pass in advance. More detailed information on the count will be provided at the poll and count awareness session, and that will take place at 5 PM on Monday, the 7th of September. And again, that will take place online via MS Teams or here in person at the Council HQ. So just moving on to that slide that's on the screen, conducting your campaign. In terms of conducting your campaign, we can't give legal or other advice about how you and your team conduct your election campaign or about how you behave during the campaign. We run the election. We do not police or regulate it, and you need to have regard to your own legal liabilities and conduct. If you have any specific concerns about the behaviour of any candidates or how they are campaigning, then you should contact either Police Scotland or the Electoral Commission as appropriate. The Electoral Commission recently published their principles for campaigning respectfully and safely, and there's a link to that in the pack that we're going to send out. Those principles set a minimum standard of behaviour for all candidates and campaigners, and they've been developed to make sure that everyone involved in the democratic process is supported and protected from abuse and intimidation. I would encourage you to have a look at those principles and share them with those who will be campaigning with or on behalf of you. Again, on campaigning, on public awareness campaigns, to ensure that the appropriate electorate is aware of this election, the elections team, the elections office team, have organised posts on both the SLC website and social media. We've displayed statutory notices in public-facing council offices within the ward. We've worked with minority groups in the ward area to promote and encourage registration and participation. We've provided information to schools and to care homes, and we've offered elections and electoral registration office helplines for voters. So what happens next? And that's covered by this next slide. There will be a polling day and count awareness session, as I mentioned earlier, Monday, the 7th of September. Now, the purpose of that is to cover those topics you can see on the screen, provide an update on postal vote arrangements, discuss polling day arrangements, discuss count arrangements in more detail, provide information in relation to post-election arrangements, and provide an opportunity to ask questions in advance of the poll and count. So, right, that's me at the end of that presentation. Can I encourage you, if you've got any questions you might have, please feel free to ask them, just to try and make sure that you're clear on the arrangements that we've been through and that are in place so far. If you don't have anything you want to ask today, but you're looking for clarification at any point, please don't hesitate to contact the elections office team at any time, and they'll be happy to give you the guidance that they can in the lead up to the election. And again, if I've got a final ask, it's, can you please make sure that your supporters and agents are aware of this information and my expectations as returning officer. And again, just to remind you, right, if you want to allow anybody to view this presentation, there's going to be a link emailed out to you, so you can go and watch this online at your leisure, or you can get any of your supporters and agents to watch this at their leisure. So I'll just put out the call. If anybody's got anything they want to raise or any questions, I'm not seeing any hands going up. So if that's the case, what I'll do is bring this to a close and just thank you for coming along and for your attendance and your attention today. Okay, listen, thanks very much.